Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports, and some breaking news and some actually massive news really in the grand scheme of things, as the Western Province announced that star eighth man Evan ROOS has signed a new 4-year contract with the union, keeping him at the Stormers until 2025. And on the back of a day later, literally a day later, when the Western Province were being threatened with being potentially replaced in the URC, they've come out with a sign of intent by announcing this Evan ROOS contract. And the reason that this is such big news is this sort of feeds into something we've been talking about quite a lot in terms of South Africa becoming an academy for the rest of the world, where we produce so many phenomenal players and then allow them to just walk away and to run down contracts. And it's funny because on the Wednesday, on the live show, we were talking about the fact that it really frustrates me that players only sign like 1-year extensions at a time, and we've got these little short-term contracts, and we don't see these big long-term contracts being given to players, which wrap players up here and increase their value. Because if we're being honest, we've looked at the likes of Ajana Augustus going overseas, Peter Steph the Toy, Yaka Kutsia, JD Schickerling from the Western Province and the Stormers. They've lost so many players, and the question is, are they really being compensated well enough for them? And in almost most cases, it's very rare that our teams do get compensated enough for the players that they lose. But this is a big sign of intent from the Western Province to say that they understand that Evan ROOS is potentially he's the former eighth man in the country at the moment, outside the Bok camp. And he looks like someone who is destined to play Springbok rugby. He looks like someone who is destined to become potentially one of the best players in the world with the way he started his career. Whether he can keep that up, we'll have to wait and see throughout the URC. But we are finally seeing a union going and saying, right, let's tie this player up now, because they can't lose now. Either Evan ROOS plays the next 4 years and is at the Stormers at 2025, or else a European side comes in and says, we really want him, in which case the Stormers say, that's fine. But he's under contract until 2025, which means if you want him, you're going to have to pay big money for him. And we need to see this more from our union, which is why I've actually just done this video, because often we don't use videos for something like a contract extension. But I think that for all the Sharks and the Bulls have been doing absolutely everything right, and all the Western Province and the Lions can't seem to do anything right, this is finally something worthy of celebrating as a Western Province and a Stormer supporter, because this is something off the field that they've gotten right. They've signed up a phenomenal player for a long time, just off the back after losing the previous World Player of the Year. So, it should be an amazing to see exactly what will happen over the next couple of years. But it is a huge and blockbuster. It's almost like a new signing, isn't it? It's that sort of excitement. Everyone always talks about when are we getting new players in, but sometimes keeping a player and getting a contract extension can almost feel like a new signing. For example, if tomorrow, the Lions come out and say that they've wrapped up Vincent Tuka for 5 years, that would feel like a new signing, because these are sides which are having a massive player drain. We've talked about some of the players. You think that from the Western Province, loose forwards alone, Siyaklisi, Yakutsia, Jono Augustus, Jono Augustus, likes of like Abongi Manambi, for example, and JD Schickerling, they've lost an entire loose trio, as well as a World Cup winning hooker. They've lost so many players, and that's just a couple of players. There are other players who have left. Edwin van der Merwe having gone to the Lions. That there's been a massive player drain from the Western Province as well as the Lions. We've kind of gotten used to the Lions one. But on the back of that, they have managed to keep Damian Willemse and tie him down with a reasonably long-term contract. I think his contract ends in 2023. And now to come out and say that Evan ROOS will also commit to the union, it speaks about a union which I don't think would take a lot of effort to sort out. If you've got players who are willing to sign their long-term future to the club, that's half the battle. And the important thing is now to be able to do that for other players, and other teams need to do that. But it's also interesting when you think about that financially, Western Province seem to be in such a big hole, and yet they've been able to hand out this 4-year contract, which can't be a small contract by any means. There was always those stories about Damian Willemse and how much he earns. But I don't think Evan ROOS wouldn't know what he's sort of value and know that he's passing up, because there probably are international offers on the table already from him. They often are. These sort of players can have a couple of good games, and all of a sudden, international teams are going, we might be able to sort of find a diamond in the rough there or something. So it's a big plus for Western Province. I also think it's a big plus for SA Rugby. First of all, we get Evan ROOS playing in the URC, playing in the Currie Cup, staying in the country. Second of all, hopefully it sets a precedent, and these other teams need to sort of take note. We need to be signing our South African players down to longer-term contracts. Even if they then go overseas, we cannot sit there losing our players at the end of their contracts. We cannot see players running down contracts, moving on freeze. We don't have the financial capacity that European sides do. The only way we can get back up to that is if we actually start making our players a commodity, which they currently are. They are the commodity. They come in and they take our players. That's what they do. And we can't stop it because of the financial, difference between what you earn in South Africa compared to what you earn overseas. But at the very least, if we are being compensated every single time that happens, at least you can then hopefully, if we do look at extending a salary cap, be able to pay the current players more and be able to try and reduce that happening so that we can be losing half the amount of players. If for every one player that leaves, we now get a player to stay. If Peter Steph the Toy leaving means we keep Evan ROOS, yes, we're using Peter Steph the Toy, but at least we're keeping another player who could become world class. And we need more of that happening because the player drain, especially in the URC, we're not going to be competitive in the URC, let alone the Heineken Cup, the Challenge Cup, unless we can bring the best players, some of the best players in the world, and keep them in South Africa. And that's what the Bulls have got. They've got a Marcel Coetzee, they've got a Dwayne Vermeulen, they've got a Johan Goosen. They brought back Bismarck du Plessis. That was announced this morning. They've made some very big and important signings. They've also made some very smart signings with the likes of Lionel Mapu and Harold Forster and stuff. But they've got some big names. The Sharks going and saying, right, we'll take Bongi Manambi, we'll take Siya Khaleesi. They brought back Siki Bozinoche. Apparently then talks to bring him into Cheslin Colby. We need to have some of our best players here. And whilst it's very, very difficult to bring them back overseas, at least if we can start using our players correctly and being financially quite clever, we can try and keep more of these players down in the country. And hopefully that will sort of reduce the player drain that we are seeing. So let me know if you think I'm reading too much into this, but I do think it's a very landmark decision by the Western Province, and hopefully one which will benefit the entire sort of South African rugby setup if we can start doing more deals like this. Start signing down our players, either keeping them here or saying if you want to go overseas, if this team wants you enough, they're going to have to pay for you because we're bored of losing all these players and not being compensated to the full extent. There are cases where we are compensated, of course there are, but are we getting as much money and are we getting as much compensation for the talent we've lost over the years? We definitely have not. If you think about the amount of players who have left this country in the last sort of 10 years, for example, and you look at the financial positions of our unions, you can clearly see that we haven't quite gotten the sort of type of money we might have been able to gotten if we had maybe been a bit more sort of savvy about it. So hopefully this starts a bit of a new trend and stuff like that, and I'm hoping other unions will sort of follow suit in terms of also trying to tie up their key players and making sure we don't either lose players at all, and if we do get compensated. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel as well. My name is Stephen. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll chat to you soon.